Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Ema Roloff, and I've got Kate with me today, and we're going to be talking about the idea of agility as it's tied in with digital transformation. But before I get into all the questions that I've got for you, Kate, can you give everybody an introduction?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Emma. Super excited to be here. I guess my education is in industrial engineering, but ever since I started my career in various roles and companies, I've always found my way into some sort of digital transformation. Now I'm actually involved in this process in a manufacturing setting when I'm trying to help manufacturers make use of their data and transform into a manufacturing facility that can be smart and take advantage of their data in a way that allows them to use AI and ML, something that I'm extremely excited about and love to learn as much as I can and happy to share on this platform as well.
Who would have thought a teacher and an engineer talking to people about technology? Thank you for joining me, Kate. So I want to get started. As I teased at the beginning, I want to talk about this idea of agility as it's associated with digital transformation. I've done the explainer video on the difference between like agile methodology and agility, but can you share a little bit about why you think that this idea of being an agile organization is so critical to driving change?
Yeah, of course. As we know, technology is kind of always changing. It's no different in our work environment. And when it becomes more complex, is the more in depth of a digital transformation that we're going towards. So that agility becomes even more critical the more complex a transformation is, especially as we know technology is not slowing down. It's going to be a continuous evolution of our technological advances. And as those innovations continue to happen, we need to be prepared to, in order to make the most use of these innovations, we need to be prepared to be agile in a way to respond to them and implement them in our organizations for business. It's truly a competitive advantage that's affecting us in ways that we've never been, I guess, warmed up to. Essentially, we've realized that successful digital transformation without agility doesn't really last. It's not sustainable. So we need to make sure that we're able to learn and retrain and make sure that our capabilities internally are up to par with these new technologies. We need to make sure that we can react to the changes in the market. We need to react to our customers' needs. We need to react to the technology that's available. And the organizations that are able to do that are going to have to be agile. So it's just a new way of thinking and being, but really to optimize the time we have with technology and when it's present, right? And then when something new comes along, we need to be able to take advantage of it.
So when we're looking at a lot of industries like insurance, where I focus, manufacturing, where you live and breathe, a lot of these organizations are pretty siloed across different departments. Can you talk a little bit about how that like information segmentation, for lack of a better term, causes a challenge for this idea of agility?
So I don't know who said it, but I love this quote and I apologize for stealing it without a credit for it. But someone said that digital transformation is a team sport, but just not everyone knows they're on the team. That's how I feel about the silos that exist in organizations. Is something might be changing in one part of the organization that's obviously for the benefit of the whole, but that change requires many parts of the organization. Usually IT is always going to be front and center there to be involved. And it's usually way more than just IT, and it's only going to become more inclusive and more holistic over time. The silo part is that right now, many organizations, the traditional approach is to have each part of the organization have their own yearly objectives and yearly goals, and they're all on a boat rowing towards one objective, which ultimately will be great and we can pass the baton on to the next boat. But we need to think about digital transformation as a larger boat and maybe different levels of rowing, but all on the same ship and all going in the same direction, because there's a lot more dependencies that coexist between these silos, and the communications that need to be more liquid throughout an organization are prohibited by a more traditional structure. So making it easy for your organization to communicate and also creating goals that go beyond just one organization, that cross-functional collaboration, and taking that one step further and making that cross-functional objectives and making sure that each function understands their unique part, but they're all still aware of and leveraging the technology in a way that's agile, in a way that's cohesive, and they're able to all connect in a way that can adapt the new technologies at the same time.
I love that idea of the team. Just not everyone knows they're on it. That's a very great way of saying it. Because
Right.
whether you want to be or not, you're moving in that direction along with the rest of us. So I really wanted to just drive that point home. So what I want to talk about here for our last kind of point before we have to break ways today is this idea of like, how do we use technology to enable us to maybe break down these information silos or build a sustainable approach to what we all know is actually the evolution of digital transformation?
Yeah, so I guess that's like the whole main theme, this last question. Great question to wrap it up. But essentially, I think the main thing we need to think about in our digital transformation and how we're going to be agile and actually be able to adapt these new technologies in a way that is a competitive advantage is making sure it's sustainable and creating any type of infrastructure and your foundation. You need to make sure that it's something that, first of all, can be changed. And secondly, there's pieces to it that can be much more flexible than maybe that foundational component. That's like a figurative way of thinking about it. But I guess the traditional way is that we might create an infrastructure for technology that we think is going to last 20 years, but that just doesn't happen anymore. So instead, we need to understand it's not the norm, and we need to know that whatever our foundation is, that's great. Let's make it really strong and secure. But then the layers that enable new technologies to come need to be ever changing and set up in a way that is flexible enough that you have in mind in a couple years, this is probably going to look very different. Yeah, ultimately making sure that your tech is very integrated and your technology, I guess, foundation is in a place that can adapt new technologies over time is what's really going to help you be agile and continuously transform over time.
Thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, Kate. And for anybody that's not already, make sure you make your way over to her LinkedIn and give her a follow there. And of course, as always, let either one of us know if you've got any questions. But thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.